Jake Martinez kicked at a rusty car door with his worn-out sneakers. The metal made a dull sound that echoed across the junkyard. He wiped his dirty hands on his jeans and looked around at the mess of broken things that filled his family's yard. Old cars, washing machines, refrigerators, and piles of metal scraps stretched out as far as he could see. The sun was getting lower in the sky, painting everything orange and red. Jake had been working since morning, sorting through all the junk that people brought to them. His back hurt and his hands were cut up from handling sharp metal pieces. But he needed the money. College was expensive and his family did not have much. Jake's father owned this junkyard outside Phoenix, Arizona. It was not a pretty place, but it put food on the table. Jake helped out whenever he was not in class at the community college. He was studying to become an engineer, though some days he wondered if he would ever make it. A truck had brought in a new load of scrap that morning. The driver said it came from an old military storage facility that was being torn down. Most of it looked like the usual stuff: broken electronics, old computers, and damaged equipment. But Jake noticed something different about this batch. He walked over to where he had dumped the new items. Most of it was covered in rust and looked like it had been sitting in the desert for decades. Jake picked up pieces of metal and sorted them into different piles. The valuable stuff went in one pile, the worthless junk in another dot. As he worked, something caught his eye. Half buried under a pile of broken circuit boards was something that did not look like it belonged. Jake pushed the other items aside and saw a helmet. But it was not like any helmet he had ever seen before. The helmet was perfectly smooth and looked brand new. It was made of some kind of metal that seemed to shift colors as he looked at it. Sometimes it looked silver, sometimes it looked dark blue, and sometimes it seemed to glow with a faint light. Strange symbols were carved into its surface, and they seemed to pulse with their own light. Jake looked around to make sure no one was watching. His father had gone into town and his younger sister was at school. He was alone in the junkyard. Except for the old dog that slept under the trailer they used as an office dot, he reached down and touched the helmet. The metal felt cool against his fingers, much cooler than it should have been after sitting in the Arizona sun all day. The moment his skin touched the surface, the helmet made a soft humming sound. Jake pulled his hand back quickly. He looked around again, but there was no one there. The dog was still sleeping. He must have imagined the sound, but as he stared at the helmet, the symbols on its surface began to glow brighter. The humming sound came again, and this time he was sure he had not imagined it. Jake picked up the helmet with both hands. It was heavier than he expected, but it felt good in his hands, like it belonged there. The moment he lifted it, the helmet suddenly came alive. Lights flashed across its surface. The symbols stopped pulsing and began to move, flowing like water around the helmet. A voice spoke, clear and mechanical, but somehow familiar. "Welcome, Commander. You died 412 years ago." Jake dropped the helmet. It hit the ground with a metallic clang, but the lights kept flashing and the voice kept talking. "Please do not be alarmed. I am Arya, your artificial intelligence assistant. I've been waiting for your return." Jake stared at the helmet on the ground. His heart was beating so fast he could hear it in his ears. This was impossible. Helmets did not talk. They did not have lights that moved by themselves. And they certainly did not say crazy things about people dying hundreds of years ago. "I think you have the wrong person," Jake said to the helmet. He felt stupid talking to a piece of metal, but he did not know what else to do. "Biometric scan confirms identity," the helmet replied. "Commander Jake Martinez, United Earth Defense Force, service number 7749 Alpha, date of death, October 15th, 2612, cause of death, heroic sacrifice during the Battle of Kepler Station." Jake's mouth fell open. The helmet knew his name. But everything else it said was crazy. He was 19 years old, not some commander who died hundreds of years ago. And what was the United Earth Defense Force? He had never heard of it. "You are confused," the helmet continued. "This is normal. Memory suppression was necessary for the reincarnation process. Your consciousness was transferred to a new body and allowed to develop naturally. You are him and he is you. I do not understand, Jake said. I am just a college student. I work in a junkyard. I have never been in space. Please pick me up again, the helmet said. I can show you things that will help you remember. Jake hesitated. Part of him wanted to run away and pretend this had never happened. But another part of him was curious. What if the helmet was telling the truth? What if there was more to his life than he knew? Slowly, Jake reached down and picked up the helmet again. The moment his fingers touched it, the world around him changed. Suddenly, he was not standing in the junkyard anymore. He was on the bridge of a spaceship, looking out at stars and planets he had never seen before. He was wearing a military uniform, and people were calling him Commander and asking him for orders. The vision lasted only a few seconds, but it felt real. More real than anything he had ever experienced. When it ended, he was back in the junkyard, holding the helmet and breathing hard. What was that? He asked. A memory, Arya replied. One of many that are stored in your subconscious. You were humanity's greatest military commander, leading our defense against an alien threat that consumed entire worlds. You died saving Earth, but not before uploading your consciousness to this helmet. Jake sat down on a pile of old tires. His legs felt weak. This is crazy. You're telling me I'm some kind of reincarnated space commander? Yes, Arya said simply. And I'm here to tell you that the threat has returned. The enemies you died fighting are coming back to finish what they started. Earth has perhaps 3 years before they arrive. But I do not know anything about fighting aliens, Jake protested. I can barely pass my math class. You will remember, Arya assured him. The knowledge is inside you, waiting to be awakened. But we must begin soon. There is much to prepare. Jake looked at the helmet in his hands. The symbols were still glowing, and he could feel a strange energy coming from it. His whole life, he had felt like he was meant for something more than the Junkyard and community college. Now, holding this impossible device, he wondered if maybe he was right. What do you need me to do? He asked. First, we must find allies, Arya said. People who can help us prepare for what is coming. And we must begin awakening the defenses you put in place before you died. What defenses? Ships, Commander. Powerful. Ships hidden throughout the solar system, waiting for your return. They have been sleeping for over 400 years, but they will wake up when you call them. Jake stared at the helmet, trying to process everything he had heard. Yesterday, his biggest worry was paying for textbooks. Now he was apparently humanity's last hope against alien invaders. How do I know you are telling the truth? He asked. Look up at the stars tonight, Arya said. In the constellation of Orion, you will see something that should not be there. A new star that is moving slowly across the sky. That is their advanced scout ship. They are coming, Commander. And Earth needs you to remember who you really are. Jake looked up at the darkening sky. Soon the stars would be visible. And maybe, just maybe, he would see proof that his ordinary life was about to become extraordinary. Jake could not sleep that night. He kept thinking about the helmet and the voice that called itself Arya. The helmet sat on his desk, quiet now, but he could see the faint glow of its symbols in the dark room. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw flashes of those strange visions, spaceships, alien worlds. Himself wearing a uniform he had never seen before, when morning came, Jake made a decision. He needed to talk to someone who might understand what was happening to him. The only person he could think of was Dr. Lisa Cameron, his anthropology professor at the community college. She studied ancient civilizations and strange artifacts. Maybe she could help him figure out if the helmet was real or if he was going crazy. Jake wrapped the helmet in an old blanket and put it in his backpack. He drove his beat-up truck to the college, trying to act normal even though nothing felt normal anymore. The helmet was heavy in his backpack, and he could feel it humming softly, like it was alive. Dr. Cameron was in her office when Jake knocked on the door. She was a woman in her 40s with gray hair and kind eyes. She always wore practical clothes, and had dirt under her fingernails from her archaeology work. Jake, she said, looking up from her papers. What brings you here? You look like you have not slept. I found something, Jake said, closing the door behind him. Something strange. I was hoping you could help me understand what it is. Doctor. Cameron looked curious. What kind of something? Jake pulled the helmet out of his backpack and unwrapped it. The moment the blanket came off, the helmet began to glow. The symbols on its surface moved like living things, and a soft humming filled the room. Dr. Cameron stood up so fast her chair fell over. What in the world is that? I was hoping you could tell me, Jake said. I found it in our junkyard yesterday. It talks to me, as if it heard him. The helmet spoke. Good morning, Dr. Cameron. I am Arya, an artificial intelligence created by the United Earth Defense Force. I am pleased to meet you. Dr. Cameron stared at the helmet with wide eyes. She walked around it slowly, looking at it from every angle. This is impossible. The technology required to create something like this is hundreds of years beyond what we have now. That is exactly what I told Jake, Arya said. This technology is from the future, or rather from a future that has already happened. What do you mean? Dr. Cameron asked. Jake is not who he thinks he is, Arya explained. He is the reincarnation of Commander Jake Martinez, the greatest military leader in human history. He died 412 years ago fighting an alien invasion, but his consciousness was preserved in this helmet. Dr. Cameron looked at Jake, then back at the helmet. You are telling me that my student is a reincarnated space commander? Yes, Arya said. And the aliens he died fighting are coming back? Earth has very little time to prepare. Dr. Cameron walked to her desk and picked up a strange device that looked like a metal detector. I want to run some tests, she said. This could be the most important discovery in human history. She turned on the device and pointed it at the helmet. Immediately, the machine began beeping frantically. Numbers flashed across its small screen faster than Jake could read them. The energy readings are off the charts, Dr. Cameron said. And, the metal ... I have never seen anything like it. It is not from Earth. The helmet is made from materials found only in deep space, Arya confirmed. It was designed to last for thousands of years and to protect the consciousness stored inside. Doctor. Cameron put down her device and looked at Jake. How are you feeling about all this? Jake sat down heavily in a chair. Confused, scared. I keep having these dreams, or maybe they are memories. I see myself commanding spaceships and fighting in battles, but I also see terrible things. Entire planets being destroyed, millions of people dying. Those are your memories, Arya said gently, the memories of your past life. They are coming back because you are ready to remember who you really are. But I do not want to remember, Jake said. I like my life the way it is. I do not want to be responsible for saving the world. I understand, Arya said. But you do not have a choice. The Devourers are coming, and you are the only one who knows how to stop them. The Devourers? Dr. Cameron asked. The alien race that Jake fought in his past life, Arya explained. They consume entire worlds, taking all the life from them and using it to fuel their expansion across the galaxy. They are like a plague that spreads from planet to planet. The helmet projected a holographic image into the air above it. Jake and Dr. Cameron watched in amazement as a three-dimensional map of the galaxy appeared. Red dots marked the locations of destroyed worlds, while blue dots showed where humans had lived. This is the galaxy as it was when Jake died, Arya said. The red areas are worlds that the Devourers had consumed. The blue areas are human colonies. The map began to move, showing the passage of time. More and more blue dots turned red as the Devourers spread across the galaxy. This is what happened after Jake's death, Arya continued. Without his leadership, humanity was forced to retreat. Most of the colonies were abandoned or destroyed. What? About Earth? Dr. Cameron asked. Earth survived? Arya said. But the people forgot about the colonies. They forgot about the war. They thought they were safe. But we are not safe, Jake said. It was not a question. No, Arya confirmed. The Devourers have been slowly working their way toward Earth. They move carefully, consuming everything in their path. They are perhaps 3 years away from reaching our solar system. Dr. Cameron looked at the holographic map. How do you Know all this? I have been monitoring deep space communications, Arya said. The helmet has been dormant for over 400 years, but it never stopped listening. I have been tracking the Devourer's movements, waiting for the right time to wake Jake up. Why now? Jake asked. Because they have found Earth, Arya said. Their scout ships detected our radio signals. They know we are here, and they are coming. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. What do they want? Everything, Arya said simply. They will consume every living thing on Earth, every plant, every animal, every human. They will strip the planet bare and move on to the next world. Dr. Cameron sat down in her chair. This is unbelievable. But if it is true, we need to warn. People, we need to contact the government. Yes, Arya agreed. But first, Jake must remember who he is. He must access his past memories and knowledge. Without that, humanity has no chance of survival. Jake looked at the helmet. How do I remember? You must allow me to interface directly with your mind, Arya said. It will be uncomfortable, but it is the only way to unlock your past. Is it dangerous? Dr. Cameron asked. There is some risk, Arya admitted. Jake's mind must merge with the consciousness stored in the helmet. If something goes wrong, he could lose his current identity completely. Jake thought about this. He thought about his life as a college student working in a junkyard. It was not an exciting life, but it was his life. If he did this, he might lose everything he was, but he also thought about the holographic map and all those red dots, all those dead worlds, all those people who had been consumed by the Devourers. What happens if I do nothing? Jake asked. The Devourers will arrive in 3 years, Arya said. Earth will be unprepared. Humanity will be extinct within a matter of months. Jake looked at Dr. Cameron. What do you think I should do? Dr. Cameron was quiet for a long moment. I think, she said finally, that you need to be very sure about this decision. If this is real, then you are talking about changing your entire life. You will become someone else, but I will still be me, right? Jake asked. Yes, Arya said. You will still be Jake Martinez. But you will also be Commander Martinez. You will have his memories, his knowledge, and his responsibilities. Jake closed his eyes and tried to imagine what his life would be like. Instead of going to college and working in the junkyard, he would be preparing for an alien invasion. Instead of worrying about paying for textbooks, he would be responsible for saving the entire human race. It was terrifying. But it was also the most important thing anyone had ever been asked to do. Okay, Jake said, opening his eyes. I will do it. Dr. Cameron reached over and squeezed his hand. I will be here with you. Thank you, Jake said, both of you. Place. The helmet on your head, Arya instructed. I will begin the memory integration process slowly. If you feel like you are losing yourself, tell me to stop. Jake picked up the helmet. It felt warm in his hands, and he could feel energy flowing through it. He looked at Dr. Cameron one more time, then placed the helmet on his head. The world exploded into light and sound and memory. Jake felt like he was falling through space and time. Images flashed through his mind so fast he could barely understand them. He saw himself standing on the bridge of a massive spaceship, giving orders to hundreds of crew members. He saw alien worlds with strange purple skies and silver trees. He saw battles in space, with laser beams cutting through the darkness between stars. Then he saw the Devours. They were not like any aliens he had ever imagined. They looked like giant insects, but they moved like liquid metal. Their ships were alive, growing and changing shape as they flew through space. And everywhere they went, they left nothing behind but empty, dead worlds. Jake screamed and tried to pull the helmet off his head, but his hands would not move. The memories kept coming, faster and faster. He saw himself as a young officer, then as a captain, then as a commander. He saw the faces of people he had loved and lost. He saw the final battle where he had died. Jake! Dr. Cameron's voice seemed to come from very far away. Jake, can you hear me? The integration is almost complete, Arya said. He is remembering who he was. Jake felt like he was being torn apart. His memories as a college student were mixing with his memories as a space commander. He could remember working in the Junkyard, but he could also remember commanding a fleet of warships. He could remember his father teaching him to sort scrap metal, but he could also remember his first officer reporting enemy positions. Then suddenly, it stopped. Jake opened his eyes and found himself lying on the floor of Dr. Cameron's office. The helmet was still on his head, but the terrible rush of memories had ended. He felt different. He was still Jake Martinez, the college student, but he was also Commander Jake Martinez, Defender of Earth. "How do you feel?" Dr. Cameron asked, kneeling beside him. Jake sat up slowly. "Like I've been living two lives at the same time." His voice sounded different, more confident. "I remember everything now, both lives." "What do you remember about?" "The Devourers?" Arya asked. Jake closed his eyes and accessed his commander memories. "They were not always evil. They were once a peaceful race called the Kef. They lived on a world far from Earth, and they were explorers and scientists. But they found something in deep space. A virus. Not a biological virus, but something that infected their minds." "What kind of virus?" Dr. Cameron asked. "We never understood it completely," Jake said. "It was like a living idea, a thought that could spread from mind to mind. It told them that life was wasteful, that the universe would be better if all living things were converted into pure energy. The virus spread through their entire species, turning them into the Devourers." Jake stood up, and Dr. Cameron noticed that he moved differently now. He stood straighter, with the bearing of a military officer. "I've fought them for 20 years, he continued. "We pushed them back, saved dozens of worlds. But they always came back stronger. How did you die?" Dr. Cameron asked quietly. Jake was quiet for a moment. "There was a final battle at Kepler Station. It was our last major base outside the solar system. The Devourers brought everything they had. I knew we could not win, so I—" He paused, the memory painful even after all these years. "I flew my ship into their command vessel. The explosion destroyed their fleet, but it also killed me." "But you uploaded your consciousness first?" Arya said. "Yes, I had been working on the technology for years. I knew that someday the Devourers would find Earth. I wanted to make sure someone would be there to fight them when they did." Dr. Cameron looked at Jake with new eyes. "You sacrificed your life to save humanity. And now I have to do it again," Jake said. "Because they are coming back." Before Dr. Cameron could respond, her computer began beeping. She walked to her desk and looked at the screen. "Jake, you need to see this." On the screen was a news report from the National Radio Astronomy Observatory. The reporter was talking about strange signals that had been detected from deep space. The signals were moving toward Earth at impossible speeds. "They know," Jake said. "Someone has been monitoring deep space communications." As if to confirm his words, the office door burst open. 3 men in military uniforms entered, followed by a woman in a black suit. The woman looked at Jake and the helmet, then at Dr. Cameron. "Dr. Cameron," the woman said, "I am Agent Carol West with the Department of Homeland Security. We need to talk to you and your student about the signals our satellites detected coming from this location." Jake looked at the soldiers. He recognized their uniforms and equipment. These were special forces, the kind of soldiers who handled things the government wanted to keep secret. "You detected the helmet's transmissions," Jake said. Agent West stared at him. "Who are you, and how do you know about classified surveillance operations?" "I am Commander Jake Martinez," Jake said, and his voice carried the authority of his past life. "And I am the reason you have been detecting signals from deep space." The soldiers raised their weapons, but Agent West held up her hand. "Explain." Jake looked at the helmet in his hands. "The signals you detected are communications from an alien fleet that is approaching Earth. They will arrive in approximately 3 years. When they do, they will attempt to destroy all life on this planet." Agent West laughed. "Do you expect me to believe that?" "Arya," Jake said, "show them." The helmet projected the holographic map of the galaxy into the air. The soldiers stepped back in surprise, their weapons still raised. Agent West stared at the display with wide eyes. This is impossible, she said. No, Jake replied. This is reality. The red dots are worlds that have been consumed by the devourers. The blue dots are human colonies. As you can see, most of the blue dots are gone. The map zoomed in on the solar system. A group of red dots was moving slowly toward Earth, still years away but getting closer. That is their fleet, Jake said. 47 ships, each one capable of destroying a planet. They are coming for us. Agent West pulled out her phone and made a call. This is West. I need to speak to the director immediately. We have a situation. While she talked, one of the soldiers looked at Jake. You are just a kid. How do you know about military operations? Because I was a soldier, Jake said. A long time ago. The soldier looked confused, but before he could ask more questions, Agent West finished her call. You are all coming with us, she said. We have a facility where we can examine this device properly. Where are you taking us? Dr. Cameron asked. Cheyenne Mountain, Agent West replied. NORAD, if there really is an alien fleet coming toward Earth, that is where the people who need to know about it will be. Jake nodded. That makes sense. We will need military support if we are going to have any chance of stopping them. You. Keep saying we, Agent West said. What makes you think you will be involved in anything? Jake looked at her with the eyes of a man who had commanded fleets and fought impossible battles. Because I am the only person on Earth who knows how to fight them. I am the only person who has ever beaten them. Agent West stared at him for a long moment. You are serious about this? Deadly serious, Jake replied. The Devourers are not. Just invaders. They are a plague. If they reach Earth, humanity will become extinct. But I have a plan. What kind of plan? Agent West asked. Jake smiled, and for the first time since putting on the helmet, he felt like himself again. Both versions of himself. I hid something before I died, he said, a fleet of ships waiting in the outer solar system. They had been dormant for over 400 years, but they will wake up when I call them. The question is, will Earth's governments be smart enough to let me use them? Agent West looked at the holographic display again. The red dots were still moving toward Earth, slow but unstoppable. I think, she said, that we are about to find out. As they prepared to leave for Cheyenne Mountain, Jake felt the weight of command settling on his shoulders again. He was no longer just a college student working in a junkyard. He was Commander Jake Martinez, and he had a job to do. The hardest part was not the responsibility. The hardest part was knowing that, even if he succeeded, even if he saved Earth, he would never be the same person again. The quiet life he had wanted was gone forever, but as he looked at Dr. Cameron and thought about all the people on Earth who had no idea what was coming, he knew he had made the right choice. Some things were worth sacrificing everything for. Are you ready? Agent West asked. Jake picked up the helmet and looked at it one more time. Then he put it back on his head, feeling the connection to Arya and to his past life strengthen. I have been ready for 412 years, he said. The ride to Cheyenne Mountain took 6 hours. Jake sat in the back of the military transport vehicle. Still wearing the helmet, Dr. Cameron sat beside him, and Agent West sat across from them. The soldiers who had come to the college rode in. A separate vehicle. Jake could feel Arya working inside his mind, helping him organize his memories. It was strange having 2 sets of memories in his head at the same time. He could remember being a scared college student just days ago, but he could also remember commanding hundreds of people in battles across the galaxy. Tell me about these ships you mentioned, Agent West said. The ones you claim to have hidden. Jake looked out the window at the desert passing by. Before the final battle at Kepler Station, I knew we were going to lose. So I took our best ships and hid them throughout the solar system. 47 vessels, from small fighters to massive battleships. Where did you hide them? Agent West asked. Everywhere, Jake replied. Some are in the asteroid belt, disguised as rocks. Others are floating in the empty space beyond Neptune. A few are hidden on the dark side of moons. They have been waiting for over 400 years. Dr. Cameron leaned forward. How could ships survive that long without maintenance? They are not like normal ships, Jake explained. The technology combines biological and mechanical systems. The ships can repair themselves and they go into a deep sleep mode when not needed. Think of them as hibernating animals. Agent West looked skeptical. Even if these ships exist, how do you plan to crew them? You're talking about vessels that need hundreds of people to operate. No, Jake said. These ships are different. Each one needs only a single pilot. The ship connects directly to the pilot's mind, becoming an extension of their body. One person can control an entire battleship. That sounds dangerous, Dr. Cameron said. It is, Jake admitted. The connection between pilot and ship is very deep. If the ship is destroyed, the pilot dies too. And if the pilot is not strong enough, the ship can take over their mind completely. The convoy arrived at Cheyenne Mountain as the sun was setting. Jake had never seen the famous military base before, but his commander memories told him it was the right place to be. This was where Earth's defenses were coordinated. They were taken deep underground, through tunnel after tunnel carved into the mountain. Finally, they arrived at a large room filled with computers and monitors. Military officers and scientists worked at stations throughout the room. At the center was a huge screen showing the solar system. A tall man in a general's uniform approached. I am General Robert Hayes, he said. I have been briefed on your claims. I have to say, this is the most unusual situation I have ever encountered. General, Jake said, standing and saluting. The action came naturally, even though he had never been in the military in this life. I know this is hard to believe, but every word is true. General Hayes studied Jake for a moment. You are just a college student, yet you stand like a soldier and salute like an officer. How do you explain that? Because I am both, Jake replied. I am Jake Martinez, age 19, student at Phoenix Community College. But I am also Commander Jake Martinez, former leader of the United Earth Defense Force. The memories of both lives exist in my mind. Show me these ships, General Hayes said. Jake looked at Arya. Can you wake them up? Yes, Arya replied. But we should start with just one. If we wake them all at once, it might be detected by the Devourer's advanced scouts. Do it, Jake said. Arya projected a holographic display showing the asteroid belt. One particular asteroid was highlighted in blue. As they watched, the asteroid began to change. Its surface cracked and fell away, revealing a sleek ship underneath. My God, Dr. Cameron whispered. The ship was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. It was about the size of a football field, with smooth curves that looked almost organic. Lights began to glow along its hull, and it slowly turned toward Earth. Ship designation Ghost-01 is now active, Arya announced. All systems are functioning. Normally, the ship is requesting orders. General Hayes stared at the display. This is really happening. Yes, sir, Jake said. And this is just one ship. There are 46 more like it, and some of them are much larger. An alarm began sounding throughout the command center. One of the technicians called out, General, we are detecting a massive energy signature from the asteroid belt. Whatever that thing is, it is putting out more power than a nuclear reactor. That is normal, Jake said. The ships use a power source that does not exist on Earth yet. They are completely clean and can run for thousands of years without refueling. General. Hayes walked to a communication station. Get me the president, he said. While the general made his call, Dr. Cameron approached Jake. How are you feeling? Strange, Jake admitted. I keep switching between my two sets of memories. Sometimes I feel like a scared college student, and sometimes I feel like a battle-hardened commander. Which one feels more real? She asked. Jake thought about it. Both. That is the problem. I am both people at the same time. A woman in a lab coat approached them. I am Dr. Amanda Foster, head of the Space Research Division. I have been monitoring deep space communications for the past 5 years. We have detected signals coming from outside the solar system, but we could never decode them. Can your AI help us understand what they are saying? Arya, Jake said. Can you translate the Devourer communications? Yes, Arya replied, but you will not like what they are saying. The helmet projected a new display showing radio waves and energy signatures. Slowly, words began to appear on the screen. Scouts report life signatures confirmed in Sol System. Primary target planet has billions of biological units. Estimated harvest time, 18 months. Fleet will arrive in 3.2 local years. Begin final approach preparations. The room went quiet. Everyone stared at the translation. 18 months, General Hayes said, returning from his call. They plan to kill everyone on Earth in 18 months. That is how long it will take them to consume the planet completely, Jake explained. But the dying will start as soon. As they arrive, what do they mean by harvest? Dr. Foster asked. Jake's expression darkened. They convert all biological matter into energy that they can use. Every plant, every animal, every person, nothing is left alive. How do we stop them? General Hayes asked. We fight, Jake said simply. We wake up the fleet and we meet them in space as far from Earth as possible. But you said there are only 47 ships. How many ships do they have? Thousands, Jake replied. But our ships are more advanced. Each one of our vessels is worth 10 of theirs, and we have something they do not expect. What is that? Dr. Foster asked. Humans, Jake said. The Devourers have been consuming worlds for so long they have forgotten what it is like to fight someone who refuses to give up. They expect their enemies to run or surrender. They do not know how to fight people who will die before they quit. General Hayes nodded slowly. You're talking about a suicide mission. Maybe, Jake admitted. But it is the only chance we have, and I have beaten them before. What do you need from us? General Hayes asked. Pilots, Jake said. Volunteers, who are willing to connect their minds to alien technology. It is dangerous, and some of them might not survive the process. But without crews for the ships, we cannot fight. How many pilots do you need? 47, one for each ship. General Hayes thought about this. I will put out a call for volunteers, but first I want to see more of these ships. If we are going to ask people to risk their lives, they need to know what they are getting into. Arya, Jake said, wake up. 5 more ships, small ones. More asteroids began to crack open throughout the solar system. Within an hour, 6 ships were active and moving toward Earth. Each one was different, designed for a specific role in combat. As they watched the ships approach, Dr. Cameron asked Jake a question that had been bothering her. If you died in the final battle, how do you know these ships will be enough to win? Jake was quiet for a long moment. I do not know if we can win, he said finally, but I know we have to try. And this time I have something I did not have before. What is that? Time to prepare. Last time the Devourers caught us by surprise. This time we know they are coming. We can get ready. Over the next few days, volunteers began arriving at Cheyenne Mountain. They came from all branches of the military, and some came from civilian backgrounds. Pilots, engineers, scientists, and soldiers. All of them willing to risk everything to save Earth. Jake met with each volunteer personally. He explained what the connection to the ships would be like and what the dangers were. Some changed their minds and left, but most stayed. Why are you doing this? Jake asked one volunteer, a young Air Force pilot named Tony Rodriguez. Because this is what we signed up for, Tony replied. To protect our country and our planet, this is just bigger than we expected. As the week progressed, more ships were awakened. The asteroid belt came alive with vessels that had been sleeping for centuries. Earth's space agencies tracked them all, amazed by technology that seemed like magic, but Jake knew that the real test was still to come. Connecting human minds to alien ships was dangerous and unpredictable. Some volunteers might not survive the process. And even if they did, they would still have to face the Devourers in battle, an enemy that had consumed entire civilizations and had never known. 2 years had passed since Jake first found the helmet in the Junkyard. The young man who had once worried about college textbooks was now standing on the bridge of the command ship, watching 46 other vessels take their positions around him. Each ship was crewed by a volunteer who had been willing to risk everything for Earth. The training had been harder than anyone expected. Connecting human minds to alien technology was dangerous. 3 volunteers had died during the process, their minds unable to handle the connection. But the others had succeeded, and now they moved their ships like extensions of their own bodies. Jake looked at the display showing the approaching Devourer fleet. They were still 6 months away from Earth, but Jake had decided not to wait for them to arrive. The battle would happen here, in the empty space between Jupiter and Saturn, as far from Earth as possible. "All ships report ready," said Lieutenant Beth Kelly from her fighter. She had been one of the first volunteers, a Navy pilot who took to the alien technology like she was born for it. "Ghost Squadron standing by," reported Captain Tony Rodriguez. His ship was one of the larger ones, bristling with weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Jake felt the connection to his own ship thrumming in his mind. The vessel was alive in a way that normal ships were not. He could feel its eagerness for battle, its desire to protect Earth, but he could also feel something else. The ship remembered the last time they had fought the Devourers. It remembered losing. "Arya," Jake said, "show me the enemy fleet." The display changed to show the Devourer ships. There were hundreds of them, each one a living nightmare of metal and flesh. They moved through space like a swarm of insects, consuming everything in their path. "They have grown stronger since our last encounter," Arya reported. "Their ships are larger and their weapons more powerful. But they still follow the same patterns." Jake nodded. He had been studying those patterns for 2 years, looking for weaknesses. The Devourers were powerful, but they were also predictable. They relied on overwhelming force and had never learned to adapt to new tactics. "All ships," Jake said into his communicator. "This is Commander Martinez. Today we fight for more than just Earth. We fight for every world the Devourers have consumed. We fight for every species they have destroyed. And we fight to prove that humanity will never surrender." The responses came back from all 46 ships. Men and women who had volunteered to die for their planet, now ready to face an enemy that had never been defeated. "Begin the attack," Jake ordered. The Ghost Fleet moved forward like a pack of wolves. They did not charge straight at the enemy. Instead, they spread out using the asteroid field between Jupiter and Saturn as cover. Each ship moved independently. Guided by its pilot's instincts and the ship's alien intelligence, the Devourers detected them immediately. Their ships turned to face the new threat, weapons charging with deadly energy, but they made a mistake. They treated the human ships like any other enemy, expecting them to follow normal battle tactics. Jake's ship was the first to attack. He dove through the asteroid field, using the rocks as shields while his weapons tore into a Devourer vessel. The alien ship exploded in a burst of green fire, and Jake was already moving to his next target. "They are trying to surround us," reported Beth Kelly. Her fighter danced between 2 massive Devourer ships, too fast for their weapons to track. "Let them," Jake replied. "Tony, are you ready?" "Ready, Commander," Tony's voice came back. Jake had learned something important about the Devourers during his years of study. They were connected to each other through a hive mind. If he could disrupt that connection, their coordination would collapse. "Execute Plan Omega," Jake ordered. Tony's ship suddenly accelerated toward the center of the Devourer fleet. The enemy. Ships turned to intercept him, thinking he was making a desperate attack. But Tony was not planning to fight them. He was planning to get close enough to deploy a special weapon that Jake had designed. The weapon was not meant to destroy ships. It was meant to disrupt the quantum field that connected the Devourer minds. Jake had learned about this field from his memories of fighting them before. If they could break the connection, the Devourers would lose their greatest advantage, Tony's. Ship took heavy damage as it pushed through the enemy formation. One of his engines was destroyed and his shields were failing. But he kept going, driven by the same stubborn determination that had made humanity great. "Deploying Quantum Disruptor," Tony announced. A pulse of energy spread out from his ship, invisible but devastating. The Devourer ship suddenly stopped moving in coordination. They began firing at each other by mistake, their hive mind broken and confused. "Now!" Jake shouted. "All ships attack!" The ghost fleet struck like lightning. Without their coordination, the Devourers could not defend themselves properly. Human ships tore through their formation, destroying vessel after vessel, but Jake knew this was not enough. The quantum disruptor would not last forever. Soon the Devourers would adapt and restore their connection. He needed to do something more permanent. "Arya," he said, "prepare for consciousness transfer." "Jake, no," Dr. Cameron's voice came through the communicator. She was monitoring the battle from Earth. "If you do that, you will die." "Maybe," Jake replied, "but if I do not do it, Earth will die." Jake had discovered something during his 2 years of preparation. The quantum field that connected the Devourers was not just a communication system, it was also their weakness. If he could inject his own consciousness into that field, he could spread a virus through their entire species, but doing so would require him to sacrifice his own life. His consciousness would be scattered across the galaxy, touching every Devourer mind at once. "All ships," Jake said, "continue the attack. Do not let any of them escape." Jake closed his eyes and felt his consciousness expanding beyond his ship. Through Aria's technology, his mind reached out across space, touching the quantum field that connected the Devourers. What he found there horrified him. The Devourers were not evil by choice. They were victims of the virus that had infected their species centuries ago. The virus had taken control of their minds, forcing them to consume and destroy against their will. "I can save them," Jake whispered. "Jake," Arya warned, "if you try to heal them all, the strain will destroy you." "I know," Jake replied, "but it is the right thing to do." Jake poured his consciousness into the quantum field, spreading himself across thousands of Devourer minds. In each one, he found the virus and began to fight it. It was like wrestling with a living nightmare, a creature made of pure hunger and hate. One by one, he freed the Devourer minds from the virus's control. As he did, their ships stopped attacking. The creatures inside began to remember who they had been before the infection, but the effort was killing Jake. He could feel his consciousness being torn apart, scattered across the galaxy. His connection to his own body was fading. "Commander." Beth Kelly's voice seemed to come from very far away. "Your ship is shutting down." Jake could barely hear her. He was losing himself in the quantum field, becoming part of something larger than any individual mind. But he could also feel the virus dying, its hold on the Devourers breaking. Across the galaxy, Devourer fleets stopped their attacks. On worlds they had been preparing to consume, they instead began to retreat. The plague that had spread across the stars for centuries was finally ending. Jake felt his consciousness fading, but in his last moments he sensed something wonderful. The freed Devourers were not just stopping their attacks. They were beginning to heal the worlds they had damaged. They were using their technology to restore life to the planets they had consumed. "Thank you," a voice said in his mind. It was one of the Devourers speaking to him across the quantum field. "Thank you for freeing us." Jake smiled, though he no longer had a body to smile with. "Take care of each other," he whispered back. On Earth, Dr. Cameron watched the monitors as Jake's ship went dark. Around it, the Devourer vessels were transforming, their organic hulls changing color from the sickly green of infection to the silver of health. "Is he gone?" General Hayes asked quietly. "His body is gone," Arya's voice came from the helmet, which sat on the table beside them. "But his consciousness lives on in the quantum field. He has become something more than human." Years later, when humanity made contact with the freed Devourers, they learned that Jake's sacrifice had saved not just Earth, but thousands of worlds across the galaxy. The young man who had once worked in a junkyard had become a legend among a dozen species, and sometimes, late at night, when Earth's radio telescopes listened to the stars, they heard something impossible. A voice in the cosmic background radiation, faint but unmistakable. "This is Commander Jake Martinez," the voice would say. "Earth is safe. Humanity endures. Never give up hope." The boy who had found a helmet in the junkyard had become something eternal, He had become the guardian of the galaxy, watching over all life with the same stubborn determination that had made him human. Earth was safe. And Jake Martinez, in whatever form he now existed, was still protecting it.